all about major keys and scales. My name is Tiffany Q, and today I will be talking about what major keys are, how they are formed, key signatures, and how to answer some basic theory questions about major scales. As usual with my theory videos, there will be timestamps in the description box below in case you are looking for something in particular. What are keys and scales? I like to think of keys as being the musical language a piece is written in. Each piece of tonal music has its own key. Some pieces are made up of more than one key, and some pieces have key changes in the middle of the music. We call this modulation. Every key has a set of notes or pitches belonging to it that are used in that piece of music. These set of pitches are called scales. In this video, we will only focus on major keys and their scales. Major scales. Below is the scale of C major. The scale begins and ends on the note C, hence its name. Any music written based on the pitches in the C major scale is said to be in the key of C major. The reason why this is considered specifically a major scale is because of the intervals or distances between each of the individual notes. I'm going to show you this more clearly on a keyboard diagram in the next slide. Now, a semitone, I will abbreviate that with the letter S, is the smallest distance between two consecutive pitches in tonal music. I want you to take a look at the keyboard now. So if I point to this note here, which is a C, and the next consecutive pitch, next highest pitch, would be this black note here, which would be either called a C sharp or a D flat. And the next highest would be this, and this, etc. So all of these are semitones. I'm going up and down in the semitones. Now a tone, which I will abbreviate with the letter T, is two semitones. So from the diagram below, notice the distances between each of the pitches in the C major scale as being tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. So between C and D, that is two semitones. So this black note here, and then falling onto the D. So that is a tone. D to E is a tone. E to F is a semitone because there is no black note here, so it would be a semitone. F to G is a tone. G to A is a tone. A to B is a tone, and B to C is another semitone. I always suggest that all music students learn how to read notes from a keyboard diagram, as it gives a very visual understanding of how pitch works, and I think it just makes the understanding of pitch and other aspects such as major scales a lot easier to understand. I'm now going to play you the C major scale, and I want you to pay attention to how it sounds. Now I am going to play the D major scale below. I want you to listen carefully and compare that to the C major scale you just heard. Notice how the two scales sound almost identical. That is because they have the exact same pattern of tones and semitones between each of the notes. If you look at here, first interval between the two notes is a tone, then another tone from E to an F sharp. So remember, if you go from E to F, because there's no black note in between, that would be considered a semitone because they are the consecutive pitches. However, a tone is 2 semitones, so it would be an F sharp. And then it's a semitone, F sharp to G, and then G to A being a tone, A to B being another tone, B to C sharp being another tone, and then finally C sharp to D being a semitone, just like the C major scale. So D major is actually a higher version of the C major scale, and that word major basically represents the pattern of tones and semitones in a scale. I'm going to play the opening of the C major scale, just the first 5 notes, and then the opening of the D major scale, first 5 notes again, and then I just want you to hear how they are the same, but one is slightly higher than the other. C major. D major. Here is an E major scale, a major scale, but beginning and ending on E. Again, have a quick study of that keyboard diagram and see if the tones and semitones are marked clearly for you. E to F sharp being a tone, F sharp to G sharp being another tone, G sharp to A being a semitone, A to B a tone, B to C sharp tone, C sharp to D sharp a tone, and finally D sharp to E a semitone. Essentially, you could start on any random note or pitch in music and discover the scale of that key by applying this knowledge of tones and semitones to it. Key signatures. What are key signatures? Key signatures are a set of sharps or flats on the stave. They appear after the clef at the beginning of each line of music to tell us what key the piece is in. Here's a little side note, which is not very important for this video, but each key signature represents 2 possibilities, either a major key or a minor key. I will have another video about minor keys in which I'll explain how to tell the difference between the major and minor key by looking at a piece of music. Each key contains a different number of either sharps or flats. You'll never get a mixture. The key signature tells us that every time we encounter those notes in the music, they will be sharpened or flattened unless counteracted with another accidental. For example, in B flat major, every B and E will be flattened. So if you have this key signature at the very beginning of your piece and at the very beginning of every line of music, that means that every B you come across, and it doesn't matter if it's a B that's on the 3rd line of the stave or the B just below middle C, you can imagine it here, and any B in this piece would be a B flat. Same goes with the E. Any E, no matter in what octave, will be an E flat. Here we have 2 sharps, and that is the key signature of D major, F sharp and C sharp. Any Fs and any Cs will both be sharpened unless otherwise stated. Now I'm just going to quickly go back in this presentation to show you the D major scale and how that relates to the key signature. So if we go back here, notice how the only accidentals in the scale are F sharp and C sharp. And we found out that this was a scale by the tones and semitones and the order that they come in. And the equivalent or corresponding key signature is this. Here is an example of Mozart's Piano Sonata K570 in B flat major. So B flat having two flats, B flat and E flat. So I've highlighted in yellow here the key signature and here again. So they appear on every line of music. I have circled in red all of the B's and all of the E's. So these notes, whenever they are played, are flattened automatically. Now, notice the green here. There is a natural sign in front of the E. So that E was originally meant to be E flat, but here the composer has decided to make that an E natural. Because if we only used the pitches from the scale, the music would be a little boring, amongst other things. Again, here we have a natural sign just to counteract that key signature. The circle of fifths. First of all, there are 15 different major keys in total, and here is a massive list of all of them. So if you look, we start with C major, which has no sharps or flats. G major has one sharp, F sharp. D major has two sharps, F sharp and C sharp. A major has three sharps, F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, and so forth. So with every single consecutive key, we have an added accidental. So F sharp major, for example, has all of the previous sharps, the previous keys sharps, all of B major, the sharps that appear in B major with an extra one. So each one adds on. And here are the flat keys. F major having one flat, B flat, and then B flat major having two flats, including the previous one. So B flat, E flat major has three, B flat, E flat, A flat, etc. So note here, before you get too overwhelmed, the way these keys work is very logical. And also, depending on what level or grade you are at, you probably won't need to learn all of these at once. So, the way keys progress from one to another is called the circle of fifths. I'm going to draw your attention to this diagram here. So we start off with C major, having no sharps or flats, hence that natural sign here. And we're going to go clockwise. So if we go clockwise, the next key is G major, which has one sharp, F sharp, which is here in the key signature. Next one is D, two sharps, D major, two sharps, F sharp, and C sharp, and etc. So with every consecutive one, we add on a sharp, etc. Then we get to 5 sharps, 6 sharps, 7 sharps. Now, these here are quite important because, for example, this one, 6 sharps, is also the same pitch as the key signature of G flat major. So G flat major and F sharp major have the same pitches, but we call those note names differently. B major, which has 5 sharps, can also be called C flat major. So they have the same pitches, but spelt differently on the stave, or the notes are called different names. So instead of the first note being a B, which is this note here, it would be called a C flat, which you can probably see is the exact same note. So it will sound the same. So now that I'm here, I'm just going to convert to flats. G flat to D flat is 5 flats. To A flat is 4 flats. To E flat is 3 flats. To B flat is 2 flats. To F is 1 flat, and then back to C major. So why on earth is this called the circle of fifths? Notice that from C major to G major clockwise, the interval, or the distance upwards, is a perfect fifth from the notes C to G. I have a whole video on intervals, so if that's helpful, then go have a look. But you can think about it as being in C major to start with and playing the C major scale until you reach the 5th note. So C, I'll play it here. C, D, E, F, G. So now that we're in G major, let's go to the 5th note of G major. Now, because this keyboard diagram is very small, I'm just going to go back into here. D major. So it keeps going up in 5ths. If we were to go anti-clockwise and start from C major and discover all the flat keys, we can go up in 4ths, actually. So if we go start from C major, we end up with F. And then a 4th from F. Remember, we have to think of F major, and F major has 1 flat, which is B flat. So the 4th note is actually going to be B flat. Hence the next key being B flat major. There is a mnemonic for remembering the accidentals of keys, and it's quite handy because every consecutive key, be it the sharps keys or the flats keys, every new key signature includes all the accidentals from the previous key. So for the sharp keys, this is what I teach my students. Father Charles goes down and ends battle. So we have this heroic image of a priest who's going down and saving the day. If you notice, C sharp major, which has the most sharps. F, C, G, D, A, E, B. Father Charles goes down and ends battle. Now, if you know that A major has 3 sharps, you can use this mnemonic to help you, because it'll be the first 3 words. Father Charles goes. Now for the flats keys, it's very interesting because it's the same words but read backwards. Battle ends and down goes Charles's father. I've put in a little apostrophe there just to be grammatically perfect. So this one, we have a slightly more morose image of the war ending and poor Charles, his father, has maybe not made it. So this is quite handy for the flats. So if you know that D flat major has 5 flats, then it will be the first 5 words of this mnemonic read backwards. Battle ends and down goes B, E, A, D, and G flats. Writing out a major scale. Number 1, intervals. Using our knowledge of the intervals between each note of a major scale, so tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone, we can figure out the scale easily. Step 1, write out all the notes on a stave in 1 octave without any accidentals. Now this is very important, and I'll explain why in a second. Step 2, check all the intervals in between each note and add in the accidentals. In a major key, it will either be all sharps or flats. There will be no mixture between sharps or flats. So, for example, F major. Well, let's pretend we don't know what the key signature is or what the accidentals are. We can write out F going to F and all the notes in between. Notice how I'm filling up every line and space available from the first F and the final F. This is very important. And then we check the tones and semitones in between from F to F. So F to G is a tone, great, that they're both correct, they're both naturals. G to A is another tone, great. Now, the next one is going to be a semitone, tone, tone, semitone. So A to B is actually not a semitone, but A to B flat is. Therefore, we put a flat in front of the B here, and that's perfect because B flat to C natural is then a tone. Okay? So hopefully that's clear how that works. Now, the reason I'm asking you to write out the scale without any accidentals first, rather than figuring it out one by one, is it's very easy to go along, and then when you reach this note here, you might accidentally call it an A sharp instead of a B flat. Now, an A sharp and B flat, they are the exact same thing. They sound the same, but theoretically speaking, it is incorrect. So it's important to write out every single note, because every single scale will have the note name of every single note from one octave to the other. Same thing with F sharp major. We can write out all the Fs there first. Now F sharp, so we're going to start on F sharp, and then again calculating the tones and semitones between each of the notes and filling in the accidentals as we go along. So notice that here they are all sharps. We don't have a mixture of sharps or flats for major keys. Number 2, memorize the circle of fifths. As their knowledge of theory improves, I would highly recommend students to memorize the number of sharps or flats in each key, going as far as the number corresponding to their level. So depending on which grade you're doing, you might only have to learn up to, a certain number of sharps and flats. So you should know, for example, A major has 3 sharps, B flat major has 2 flats. So that is something that I would recommend my students to memorize by heart. Just the major key signature and then the number of accidentals they correspond to. Once the number of accidentals is memorized, one can use the mnemonic Father Charles goes down and ends battle, forwards for sharps, backwards for flats, to work out what the accidentals are and in what order they appear in the key signature. So, E major has 4 sharps. Father Charles goes down. So we write out a scale from E to E without any accidentals, filling in every single note in between on each line and space. And I'm just putting a sharp in front of all the letters that correspond to the mnemonic. Father Charles goes down. F, C, G, and D. A flat major has 4 flats, so we know that is battle, ends, and down. I'm writing out a scale from A to the top A, filling in all the lines and spaces in between, and then I'm just matching the flat names to the notes here. Now it has 4 flats. You're probably wondering, why are there 5 circles? Well, the first note, A flat, and the last note are going to be the same, so it actually doesn't count to say that there are 5 flats, because there are only 4 different types of flats. Writing a scale with a key signature. It is also quite important to memorize the positions of the accidentals on the key signature. For example, the first F sharp in the treble clef, which I've pointed to here in red, must be written on the first line of the stave in any key. These positions are specific to the clef, so I've only included 2 examples of treble clef and the bass clef, but in the alto and tenor clefs, they also have their own sort of specific positions. Now, when I'm teaching these key signatures to my more advanced students, I make them learn the ones with the 7 sharps and the 7 flats, because once you know the 7 sharps key signature, then you pretty much know everything else, because if you take G major, it's just going to be F sharp in this position, D major will be F sharp and C sharp in this position, etc. So this F sharp will always be here in any key that has a sharp in it. Here are some final questions. Write an ascending scale of a G major with a key signature. So G major has 1 sharp, F sharp. So we're going to pop that there. Hopefully we know which F it is and we're not putting it an octave below by accident. So once we pop in that F sharp, it's very easy. We don't have to include the F sharp here. It's already written in the key signature. Write a descending scale of E flat major with a key signature. E flat major has 3 flats, battle, ends, and. So I'm popping that here and then just very simply writing a descending scale from E going to E. And finally, write an ascending and descending scale of C flat major with a key signature. C flat major has 7 flats, battle, ends, and down goes Charles's father in this exact order. So B, E, A, D, G, C, F. And then writing the scale going up and going down. And that's major keys and scales in a nutshell. Thank you for watching, and be sure to check out the other music-related videos on my channel, as well as more theory in the near future.